Chapter 6. Precious Little Time. Don't count the days, make the days count. Muhammad Ali. The day had finally arrived. It was 10 days after I saw the GP and Emma now weighed just under 3.5 kilograms. We were able to take her home. She was still on a small amount of oxygen and we were allowed to administer her medication ourselves. An appointment was made to bring her back into the hospital in 2 weeks to have her eyes checked. But it was a fabulous feeling having her home. The first eye check-up was okay. To ensure that there was no sudden changes with her eyes, she would be reassessed in another 2 weeks. My time with Emma at home was so precious. I cuddled her, sang to her, read to her, and she loved lying under her mobile, watching the toys swinging around. I also realised that if I put my bright yellow jersey on, she seemed to follow me around the room, although I wasn't sure if it was her eyes or just the movement of her head that was following me. I would pass this information on to Dr. Peart at our next appointment. 18th of June 1991, 4 weeks later. It became evident that her cataracts were hindering her ability to see. Dr. Peart, the eye specialist, sat down with us and explained what her future would look like if she were to have the surgery or not, but also that due to her heart condition, there was a 50% chance that she might not survive the surgery. He suggested that we think about it for a couple of days and let him know our decision so he could make the necessary arrangements. 3 days later, we confirmed we would go ahead with the surgery. 24th of June 1991, pre-admission. Pre-admission was set for 11 a.m. on the 24th of June 1991, the day before her surgery. Back in the NICU unit, her room was to be the isolation room, due to her having contact with the outside world. This was a precautionary measure for the other babies within the unit. She was weighed and was now just over 3.5 kilograms. Other observations were taken. She was first on the list for surgery the next morning. It was approximately 7:45 p.m. that evening when we finished settling her in the isolation room. Part of me desperately wanted to stay in the parents' room near the isolation room that was along the corridor. It was going to be the first night without her mum and dad to attend to her feed in the night. However, we were reassured that she would be fine and we had no reason to believe otherwise. We were told to go home and enjoy a night of uninterrupted sleep. Reluctantly, I did. I insisted that if she became unsettled in the night, that they were to ring me. I didn't care what time it was, just ring. I didn't want her to get worked up before her surgery. This was chartered for the nurse who was to take over for the night shift. I sang Emma her goodnight song, kissed her head, and said to her, "I will see you in the morning, my darling girl." Little did I know that was the last time I would see my little girl alive. Numb. The phone call came at 4:05 a.m. Tuesday morning. Neil is hysterical. He took the call. He is saying, "No, no, no, no," over and over, in between sobs. "It's okay," I said, "you're confused." It was the first time I felt that I needed to slap him, to stop him acting so erratically. "Stop it," I said. "Get dressed, Wendy. You have to get dressed," he said. "We need to go to the hospital. Hurry, we need to go. Emma is dead." I got dressed. "You're not driving," I said. "You're in a terrible state." He insisted. "No, I am driving. Just get in the car." There was no point arguing. I just did what I was told and I got in the car. The hospital was only about 7 minutes away from our house, but it seemed like it was taking an eternity to get there. The sooner we get there, the better, I kept saying to myself. This is a mistake. There's been a mistake. We're going to look like fools arriving at the hospital at this time of the morning. This is nothing but a bad nightmare. This is all wrong. Neil is horribly confused. We pulled up outside the hospital in the 5-minute park. I got out of the car and reached for Neil's hand. He held my hand and squeezed it. I remember half walking, half running to the lift to take us to level 5 of the hospital, where Nico was located. We had to run past security, but the security guy knew our faces from previous visits to the hospital. You get to know a lot of people in the hospital when you've been there for nearly 3.5 months. We jumped in the lift, pushed the button for level 5. Ting went the bell as the lift doors opened. We ran down the first part of the hallway until we get to the path where you have the option to go left or right. Turning left takes you to the Nico unit. Then you have to enter 2 sets of doors before you gain access to the Nico unit. As we approached the first set of doors, the fire doors, I could see 2 doctors standing side on through the portal window. There they were, ready to meet us, ready and waiting. Yes, they were expecting us. Now Neil's nightmare was becoming my nightmare. No, no, no. Voices were screaming in my head. No, 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 this is some nightmare. This is really happening. Someone, please just wake me up. Please, someone. But no one would, because it was real. As I walked towards the doors, their heads turned and I could see their faces through the windows and the doors. There it was, the look, the expression, the look of sadness and hopelessness. They opened the doors and we were greeted with the words, "We are so sorry." Goodbye, Emma. She lay in her cot and she looked different. The oxygen tube that had been part of her wee face that was secured above her lip and under her nose had been removed. Why had they removed it? Of course she didn't need it. She lay there as if she was asleep with her whole body intact. I touched her face. The voices inside my head were screaming inside. "Please, Emma, please open your eyes. Please, just open your eyes. Mummy is here. I'm so sorry for leaving you. I'm here now. Please, just wake up." I just wanted to see her blue eyes. There was so much life and brightness in them. I took one of her little hands in my finger. She was perfect in every way. I picked her up to cradle her. Her body was still warm. It was just so hard to comprehend that this wee baby, who only hours ago was smiling, flapping her arms, making gaga noises, was gone. She was completely lifeless. As I held her, I began to feel angry. I started firing many questions at the doctors. What happened? How could this go so wrong? She wasn't supposed to die in hospital. She was in the safest place she could be. And she hadn't even had her operation yet. Out of this devastation, I was trying to make some sort of sense out of the whole situation. I wasn't prepared for this. How am I supposed to function? What do I do now? My whole world was tipped upside down. I was in shock. I was numb. The doctor in charge proceeded to tell me that the nurse who had been assigned to looking after Emma had gone on a tea break, and on returning from her tea break, she found Emma covered in vomit. The nurse had no clue what happened. As Emma was in the isolation room, no other nurse would have been watching her. Prior to the nurse going on her tea break, she had checked on Emma, and although she was a bit unsettled, her observations were fine. The doctors had worked on Emma for over 30 minutes to bring her back, but nothing worked. When the nurse found Emma, it could not be determined if she had died due to choking on her vomit or if her heart had gone into an irregular heart rhythm and it was her body's way of shocking itself through vomiting to get the heart back into a regular rhythm. I thought, hearing that, I was going to pass out. This was about all I could take. It was going to require an autopsy to confirm the cause of death. I could not bear the thought of her dying by choking on her own vomit. It was incomprehensible that she, a little fighter, and we had been through so much for her life to end from choking on her own vomit. I then immediately transitioned from a state of disbelief to anger and guilt. angry with myself for leaving my daughter on her own in the hospital, and the guilt in my mind that this could have been avoidable. Why did I leave her by herself? I should have stayed. She wouldn't have died if I'd stayed. It was all too much. I had to ring someone. I needed to talk to my dad. I had only started to reconnect with my parents after finding out I was going to have a premature baby. I felt that whatever happened between us was between us, but that they had a choice if they wanted to be involved in their granddaughter's life. They had a right to know, and so did Emma. I was torn to ring him or not. Should I wait until it was a more sociable hour or just phone him? It was approximately 5:30 a.m. by this time. I knew that when he looked at the clock before he answered, he would either know that, 1, someone had died, or if it was a phone call from Scotland. I was born in Scotland and my parents immigrated to New Zealand when I was 8 months old. As the majority of Mum and Dad's family were still in Scotland, it wasn't unusual to get phone calls at ungodly hours of the morning from friends who'd been out for a bevy, which is another word for getting drunk, and decided to ring New Zealand and have a chat with Jock, or from family eager to share some news. Growing up, it was a standard joke, but this time it wasn't funny. This time it was me giving the bad news, and news that I couldn't comprehend myself. The phone seemed to ring and ring and ring forever. Just to put you in the picture, this was the era of the old landline, where the telephone was based in the hallway or the lounge before it was normal to have cell phones by the bed. At last Dad answered the phone in a crackly, half-asleep Scottish voice. "Hello," he said. "Dad, Dad, Dad." I was sobbing. I couldn't get the words out. "Dad, Emma is dead." "What?" he replied. "Dad, Emma is dead. Can you please come into the unit? I feel sick." "Oh, no," he cried. "I'm on my way." I waited for my dad to arrive, which felt like an eternity. For a moment I felt as if I had regressed to my 4-year-old self. This was a terrible nightmare. I would wake up any minute and it would be okay. Dad would make it okay. As a child, if I had a nightmare, I would tiptoe into Mum and Dad's room, the only time I was allowed, and tap Dad on the shoulder and whisper, "Dad, I need a cuddle. I've had a scary dream." I would never go around to Mum's side of the bed, because if you chanced your luck, you would be greeted by a Rottweiler dog. You learnt never to wake the mama. But Dad would always let you snuggle in for a few minutes, reassuring me that it was a bad dream before telling me to pop off back to my own bed. But this time, he couldn't make it right. He could only hold me as I sobbed my heart out. The nurses and doctors did their best to support us, to say the right thing. Some did and some did not. News soon reached Dr. Pear, the eye specialist who was to perform surgery on Emma at 7:30 a.m, and he was advised that she had died in the night. He came up to the NIC unit to offer his condolences. The pain on his face was genuine. He was a dad as well. I'm glad for both their sakes that Emma did not die during the operation.